does feel like, Texans Colts. I like the Texans in this one.
I do too.
Yeah, I think C.J. Stroud at the crib. I think he balls. I gave this out as my beat the books. I think Nico Collins has a day. Like, he has been absolutely cooking in the last few games with C.J. Stroud. I think he's averaging 7.5 catches and 110 yards per game in his last 4 games that C.J. Stroud has played. So you got no Tank Dell there to, shoulder the burden with you. So I think he's going to go off. Like, I like his over there. So I like the Texans in that spot. Just take them on the money line, I think.
I mean, this is a de facto playoff game. I'm taking the best player on the field. I'm going C.J. Stroud, right?
Same.
Like, he came back. He missed those 2 games with the concussion, and then he looked pretty good against Tennessee. Texans dominated that game. I just think they're the better team. The line is telling you that they're the better team, right? They're favored on the road in Indianapolis. So I'm going to go with that. I think both young coaches are fantastic. D'Amico Ryan, Shane Steichen have done a great job. I'm with you, though. I like Houston. Colts beat them earlier in the year. It's tough to beat a team 2 times. Give me Houston.
I think PJ thinks that Sirianni is the problem in Philadelphia. He said that earlier on in the show. I don't know if I agree. But do you think that this type of commentary during the in the locker room is enough to kind of unify the team and bring them back together enough to kind of turn this season around?
We'll see. It feels like a life vest, right? They're trying. This is like the last ditch resort. The guy that has been the most frustrated is now the one holding court and telling everyone it's going to be fine. We believe in everyone. This feels like the last ditch resort to try to pull this locker room back together. And A.J. Brown's a captain, so I think the last couple weeks have been a little bit of strangeness because, yeah, he's not talking. He doesn't want to upset anyone, doesn't want to throw anyone on the bus. But when he doesn't talk, it makes all the other captains have to talk for him. So I think almost today was more for him to – and he apologized to his teammates, the fellow captains, for not kind of holding up his end of the bargain last few weeks in terms of talking and being accountable. So I think today was for that. We'll see how the team responds to it. It was interesting because, yes, all those quotes are good on the surface, yet, kind of when you read between the lines, some of the stuff he said, you're like, what does that mean? Because at one point he talked about the end of the Seattle game when Jalen Hurts threw an interception to him, trying to attempt to pass to A.J. deep down the field. They only needed a field goal. It seemed like a pretty, risky play at that point for no reason. And he mentioned today, don't blame Nick Sirianni for that. Don't blame the coaches. Jalen Hurts and I, or he said, we, but obviously it was the quarterback and him, we kind of freelanced that one. So in essence, he's saying that they just took the play call and did their own thing, which, okay, don't blame the coaches, but then why are they doing that? So it kind of opens up that can of worms. I do hope and do think it could be a good thing, but it certainly is just the latest bit of drama in a season that's had a lot of it here, despite a good record for the Eagles.
What's stemming all of this, do you think? Like, is it more than one thing? Is it the Super Bowl hangover? Because the vibes were so high last year, and this year they couldn't be more of a 180 turn.
Yeah, I think part of it is they just haven't had any fun. You mentioned vibes. I mean, there was a report here in Philadelphia in the Inquirer a few weeks ago that they were the most miserable 10-1 team anyone had ever seen. They weren't having fun. I think the weight of expectations, they put it on themselves that they had to get back and they had to win it this year. So nothing was good enough. And even though they were winning early, we all saw it. They were barely covering. They were coming back. They weren't really playing dominant football. I think they were struggling to enjoy wins because they realized they weren't playing that well. And then they started to lose, and it became like, oh boy, we weren't enjoying the wins. Now we're losing, and the fingers started pointing. So it's been an odd year around the Eagles to where they're in the playoffs. But yet, I kept saying this week on the show, like, this team's going to play a playoff game next weekend. They will be favored, and we're talking about things like, pointing fingers and who's culpable. And it's almost like the offseason has arrived, even though the playoffs haven't even started yet.
Between Michigan and Washington, we were just talking about, Washington's offensive line needs to protect Penix. On the other side, you said you expect Blake Corum to have a big game. Like, what do you expect Michigan's game plan to be? Do you almost think Harbaugh and the offense, like, they decide to go with a little bit more ball control? Do you think they have so much respect for Washington's offense that they try and really use Corum, use Donovan Edwards to grind the clock and just chew up possession to try and keep that Washington offense on the sideline as much as they can? Like, do you think McCarthy under passing props, under passing yards could be a look in the natty?
Yeah, I actually don't hate that at all. I don't know what the number is in Pennsylvania. I don't have player props, so I usually have to go to Eric or Brad for that constantly, which is so annoying. But you made some great points there. And one thing I'll say is you gave me a flashback when talking about being more bland in ball control, because when Michigan did their flea flicker numerous times, I mean, my heart was skipping beats, especially on the fumble. And I'm like, there's a time to definitely take your shots and opportunities. I'm all for that. If you get a turnover and you're on the 30 or 40-yard line away from the end zone, take a shot immediately. Like, I'm 100% in for that. But there's a time of being too cute in such a big game. And I think Michigan will refrain from being too cute in this game. So, yeah, I like the offensive ball control comment. I think Michigan runs the ball very heavy here and relies on Roman Wilson when they do pass. But J.J. McCarthy under passing props would honestly be a pretty good play here.
Vaughn, you've obviously watched all the games during bowl season. Like, I'm curious, are there teams that you're making mental note of for next season that you really, really like? Because I know Arizona, Virginia Tech, Ole Miss, like those are some teams bringing a lot back that I'm looking forward to betting next season. Like, are there teams that you've already kind of marked down that that's a team to watch for next year?
Yeah, throw Kansas State in there too. I mean, Kansas State quarterback Avery Johnson, true freshman, boy, he had some wheels on him. They said he ran a 4.5 flat out of high school, and it looked every bit of that. Maybe a 4.4 potential for him. So I definitely liked what Kansas State had going on offensively. And, I mean, did I love and hate the Iowa-Tennessee under 35.5 play? But Tennessee, oh my gosh, their quarterback also. He was certainly impressive. He was the highest-rated recruit they've had since Peyton Manning. So you got to take a look at Tennessee, and maybe the Hendon Hooker high-octane offense is back next year with the quarterback switch from Joe Milton. But Tennessee and Kansas State are two teams I would add to your list that I'm certainly looking at too.
Don't be surprised if they end up needing the favorite here. They will almost certainly need the under. People are going to be, you get the, one odds maker told me, especially when you're talking championship games, you draw an even broader audience than you're already drawing for big college football games or even big NFL games. When it's a championship game, you're getting even more people involved. You're getting more of those casual recreational bettors involved, people who maybe only bet a few times a year at most, and they want to be entertained. And Washington is entertaining. Michael Penix Jr. is entertaining. So don't be surprised if this turns out with Michigan being the need, unless there's some futures bets out there that are dictating otherwise.
Monday morning was New Year's Day. It was a big football day, but it was the first day ready to bet some golf. And I've gone back and forth on Patrick Cantley. Like, hungover on Monday morning, if I wanted to feel like just putting him, just almost double clicking him to win this golf tournament, like I felt alive. Not necessarily a good feeling, but I felt alive inside. There's been so much negative energy around Cantley from the golf fan, and I really do believe that him and his buddy Xander might be coming out to like crotch chop all of us this year and finally pick up some wins. So he's a player that I was real tempted to bet. In the end, I didn't, but I do believe both of them, they're in a bit of a win drought, those two as well. I believe they're both really going to be ready to get off the mat and are perfect course fits in Kapalua.